Welcome, everyone. Greetings.
Lovely to see everyone. Welcome. Lovely to see smiling faces as well.
Mhm.
Welcome. Fab. We might have a few people join us and walk through that Zoom door as we move through the session, but Clea and I are really keen to make a start. So a very, very warm welcome, everyone. We are so happy to have you here. We've designed this workshop, Starting Strong, a workshop for first year PhD students, for those of you that are in the early stages of PhD journey. So truly, these reflections fit any season of research. So if you're a few months in, if you're kind of in your second year, even if you're at the late stages of the PhD, we hope this speaks for you. For those of you that did start this year in maybe autumn, maybe earlier this year, you might be feeling a range of emotions. There might be some excitement. There might be a little bit of uncertainty. There might be a lot of joy going on. This is the moment you've been waiting for. There might be a little bit of anxiety. You might still be navigating this incredible transition into this new chapter of your life, entering this identity as a PhD researcher. However, you're feeling and whatever you're thinking, you're in exactly the right place by being here in this accepted academy session. So, welcome. Before we dive in, I would love to share just a quick little bit about us, who we are, and why we're so excited to be speaking to you here today. My name is Dr. Polly Hember, and I'm here with my dear friend and collaborator, Dr. Clea I. Together, we co-facilitate PH Done, which is a community where research and well-being really go hand in hand. So this is the ethos that Clea and I have put at the center of this membership, this PH Done. It's a space where you don't have to choose between progress and peace. We believe it's making sure that you're well. So like the really just well-being, it's integral to the research journey. You shouldn't have to sacrifice one or the other. Now for Kalia and myself, we didn't realize this until slightly later down the line in our respective PhD journeys. It's something that I wish I'd had known from the start. And so our work now aims to share that knowledge and that care that we wish we'd had going into this fall. So that's a little bit about who we are and how we've come to be here talking to you today. And for the next hour, the shape of it, we'll just be talking through some of our advice for starting off a sustainable and supportive research rhythm. And within that, we've got a few talking points. We've got a few bits of our own advice. We've got a few invitations for you. So these are yours to do with what you'd like. There'll be some moments for some quiet journaling. There'll be some moments where we'd love to invite you to speak and to share your thoughts out loud on mic if you feel comfortable. If you're in a space where that doesn't feel quite possible right now, we'd love to see you typing away in the chat. So really do speak to us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, any reflections as we move through this next hour, that would be so valuable. So yeah, that is what to expect. Leah, over to you.
Thank you, Polly. What a beautiful introduction. As Polly said, my name is Dr. Kalia I. It's a joy to be with you all. I'm zooming in from San Diego, so I'm starting my morning with all of you. And as what Polly just spoke about in terms of a lot that a lot that kind of guides this particular workshop is informed by kind of our own journeys, as well as our accompaniment of other students in this past year working with PH Done. And I was just reflecting how I have a mug that a friend made. It was like a beautiful piece of pottery, and it says, "Create what you wish existed." And so, as I was listening to Polly, I was just reflecting on how, with like much gratitude for Kate and Kaylin, that's what we've been able to do is really help co-create what we wish existed for us during our journey. So. I'm really hopeful that this will be a nourishing time for all of us. Okay, so we'd like to invite you to begin by taking the most nourishing breath you've taken all day. And I like that offering because it invites you just to ground and give yourself what you need. And so we're going to invite you over and over again during this workshop to give yourself what you need. And so we want to hear from a bit of you just through the chat as a way to start. And so the invitation now is to share one word or a short phrase that describes how you're feeling about your PhD journey so far. And this is a no judgment zone. And as you share that word, try to do it as non-judgmental as you can. Like just neutralize it. What's one word or short phrase that describes how you're feeling about your PhD journey so far? Excited and also uncertain, passionate, grateful and excited, hopeful. There are others. And we can acknowledge that there might be a full range of things, right? We already see that. Gratitude, excitement, uncertainty, excited and overwhelmed at the same time. I was looking for that word. I expected overwhelmed might be present. Um, all of these make perfect sense. Terrified, but in a good way. Yeah. I think a word I probably had in my first year starting it was expectant. Like I just felt like something's going to happen. I think I was hopeful that something would be good, but I just was like, something's happening, right? Ayana sharing it validated and excited. Ruby shares passionate, excited, thrilled, worried. Again, full spectrum. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay. So acknowledging that we're all holding a myriad expression of feelings. They're all welcome. There's no need to shift any of that, no pressure to shift any of that in this 1 hour. So just acknowledging that that all exists. And as we continue to go through this session, take what you need, compost the rest. There'll be a recording. You can come back to it when you need it. And I'm going to give it back to Polly.
Thank you for that. Loved hearing those reflections. It's really nice to feel the energy in the room and to see where we all are. So we'll think through the reality of the first year. And I think a lot of this will speak to maybe some of those emotions that just got sounded out in the chat. But what we'd like to do first off is to congratulate you. So if you're here, like this most likely means that you've made a start on your doctoral journey. So this is an incredible accomplishment within itself. I hope you've been celebrating hard. I hope you've been really savoring this moment of starting. But we also want to begin by acknowledging, first of all, that accomplishment, that achievement. We want to celebrate you. But we also want to name what the first year of a PhD actually feels like, because I don't think anyone really tells you. Your supervisor, your advisor, they might give you some useful advice. They might give you some really exciting first steps to take, some direction. But I think the emotional complexity of the first year no one told me what that would feel like. So for me, it felt really disorientating. It felt really exciting. But like, was it, oh, who was it in the chat that used that word? Kind of like a little bit uncertain, a little bit terrified in maybe a good way, maybe a little bit overwhelmed. I think these feelings, like the full spectrum of them, they're all so valid, right? Because there's a lot of ambiguity. There's ambiguity because no PhD journey will look or feel or be the same. We're all doing original research, and that's the beauty of the PhD. But it's also a little bit unsettling, right? There's no single roadmap, and we're really forging this incredible journey ourselves. So whilst we can ask for advice and support and wisdom from those that are a little bit further down the way from us, whilst we can ask for that advice and that support from our supervisors, our advisors, I think it's really important to say like uncertainty is natural, it's normal. I don't know whether anyone in the room also feels this sense of like everyone else already knows what they're doing. Everyone else is reading and researching. Everyone else is making notes. Everyone else is kind of seems to have it all together. Everyone else seems to know what they're doing. These are kind of the imposter feelings that I think I really struggled with for much of my first year and a little bit like of my second as well. I kind of felt like there was some like message that had been sent out to everyone that's like, oh, this is how to do a PhD. This is what you should be doing. And I'd missed that somehow. The truth is, no one really knows what we're doing at this point. We're all just figuring it out together. And I think when we start to acknowledge that, when we sound that out in these safe spaces like this one, maybe colleagues, maybe friends, maybe folks in our department, maybe we can sound that out and go, oh, actually, like we're just all figuring it out. I think it's really important to say that. There are also lots of pressures. Suddenly we have new deadlines. We have like a new metric of success. We have these ideas of, and I hate this phrase, this like publish or perish. We have to impress our supervisors or our advisors in some way. Like we've got like a new bucket list of things we want to do. And suddenly we can do them. We've started our PhD. That also brings a certain amount of pressure. So again, it's natural to feel overwhelmed. It's natural to feel uncertain. We'll also be navigating new relationships. So these professional relationships, they also take time to nurture, to establish. We've got to navigate those expectations with supervisors, with our committees, and within our departments. We might be navigating a new move as well. If you've moved cities, maybe to start this incredible journey. All of these things you're figuring out. We're all figuring out at the same time. The important thing is here. So I've just listed a number of things I remember working through and things that really threw me off. The important thing is to remember you're not behind. And these feelings, they're very natural, and that everyone will be feeling some version of them. You're not behind. What you actually do is you're becoming. And so this is what Clea and I really want you to take away, is that you are getting to forge the life that you want. You get to decide what kind of researcher you become. And you can do that within these first few months, within this first year. You can do this anytime in the PhD journey. But it's such a so powerful to be able to create that early on, to really set up these systems, to decide the practices that you want to keep, what's important to you, what do you value. You get to decide. You're not behind, you're becoming. So I don't know whether anyone else relates to any of this. Kalia, I don't know. Well, I know
I
that some of
I
you.
definitely relate. I definitely relate. And I love what, you talked about in terms of, all those different areas. And one area I want to acknowledge, that I often don't hear talked about as much is just the kind of peer relationship dynamic that also shows up too. So I just remember like also trying to figure out who my community was going to be, in my program. Like, how are we going to be able to work together. Some people were like really competitive off jump, right? And some people were like me, I was like, I'm just happy to be here. I left my job and I left my salary and I did all this because I want to be a tenure track faculty member. And like, that was met with, various levels of interest. But overall, I wish that I would have been able to cultivate more self-compassion earlier on, and not create such high stakes for myself.
I love that. I so relate to that as well. So yeah, it's about not being too hard on ourselves. And it's just really about like taking a beat, taking a breath, yeah, and really settling into this new phase of life. One of the things that we thought would be quite useful to talk about in kind of grounding ourselves within this, the reality of the first year of the PhD, is this idea. Clear and I love to talk, like love to call it finding your research North Star. I think one of the most like uncertain or kind of like unsettling parts of the first bit of the PhD for me was not quite knowing what my project is yet or what it wants to be or where it wants to go. You might have an idea. I had a proposal, but I think I felt like quite like undermined by actually not knowing what it would turn into. I didn't know what a PhD was. I had an idea, but it was all sort of up for grabs. And that's beautiful. The best ideas change and evolve and grow over time. That's why they're such like long projects. We can welcome that. But I think one of the things that that's really useful in moments like that, where there is that uncertainty, there's that curiosity, there's this idea of openness and excitement, is this idea of a research North Star. A North Star doesn't mean that you have to have everything perfectly defined and outlined. That's going to hold us back because, like I said, the best projects change. We mean connecting with a sense of purpose or questions that led you here. This can be a curiosity, this might be a calling, this might be a certain question or a set of questions. It might be an injustice that you want to attend to and challenge. It could be a passion that's propelled you to this moment, whatever it is that's brought you here to this workshop, to this moment where you're starting this incredible journey. That is the research North Star. It's something unchanging, and you can always look up and see it, and it will guide you on. For some of you, this will immediately be clear right now. You'll go, oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean when you're saying, oh, it's a question, it's a curiosity, it's the reason, it's the why. For others, this can still be forming, and that's completely fine. Both are absolutely a-okay. As I said, that's the beauty of the PhD, is ideas shift, they unfold. As I said, your North Star might be a question, it might be a community, a problem, it might be kind of a creative yearning. Think of it like a compass. Think of it as a way to navigate when we're feeling unsteady or maybe we're feeling lost. This research North Star will be here through your first year, will be through your second, however many years you take. This will guide you. It's not a rigid GPS. It's not going to beep if you stray. It points us towards what matters. It's not a fixed destination. It's actually just what's keeping us going. And it's allowed to shift and grow as you do. So I hope this is making sense. If you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat. We've got a few questions, a few prompts here for you, and we would love to invite you to just have a little check-in with yourselves. If there's a pen and paper handy, maybe now's the time for some journaling. If you want to think these through in the chat, that's also you're very welcome to do that. If you want to just sound these out just in your own head, you're very welcome to, whatever feels right. So, what led you to your program? What questions or curiosities are alive in you right now? What excites you about what you're learning? And what do you hope your work might make possible? So these are some of the prompts that we use to identify that research North Star. We're going to take just a minute or two here and just have a quiet reflection. I'd love you to consider those questions. So we'll be here for just 1 or 2 minutes, and then we'll come back to center.
So feel free to continue to journal, but I'd love to just invite, we can maybe hear 1 or 2 voices if you want to briefly just share what came up for you in this journaling. And if you don't want to, you can come off mute if you want to share aloud, or you can put it in the chat. I'll just give a few more seconds in case anyone wants to come off mute. Okay. There'll be other opportunities to share if you all like. So now that we've framed your why, we want to talk about the how. So how will you move through this first year in a way that sustains you? We know that we are team, um, we are not team productivity, we are team progress. And so the productivity will come through progress, you just attempting, you practicing bit by bit. And so sometimes we can get caught up in productivity for productivity's sake, and we can kind of lose our intention. And that's how we kind of fall into burnout. So we believe that we can make meaningful progress by sustaining rhythms that align for us. And I think there's something in the chat, so I wanted to just pause and see what was reflected. So Ayana is sharing, I'm drawn to the idea of expertise and impact. Love that. There's great affirmations there. Robert shared, I deal with daily life and social dynamics during the Holocaust. The large question I have is, how do people live under genocide every day? What are their lived experiences? In other words, I hope to think of new ways to talk about genocide that focuses on the human and communities affected. That is really powerful, Robert. Thank you for sharing that with with us. Thankful for you and your commitment to your scholarship. Okay. So please continue to share with one another in the chat. So again, we believe that finding a sustainable rhythm is one of the most important things that you can do to support yourself at the beginning of a PhD. But the truth is, it's not really just at the beginning of the PhD, it's the whole way having, these sustainable rhythms are going to support you. So we want to acknowledge that whether you've come straight from undergrad or a master's program, or it's been several years since you were last in school, perhaps your energy or circumstances might be different now. So there may be some things that you've always done that still work, but you may find that there's some things that you used to do that might not still work. And not to out myself too much, but I took 7 years off between my master's and my PhD. And I remember thinking I could do all-nighters. And I remember coming back quite a bit older to try to attempt my first all-nighter in my master's. I'm sorry, in my PhD program. And I woke up with my head on my desk. So, there may be and a need for a chiropractor. So, be kind to yourself, right? But we are going to just share, and Polly's going to come up next and just talk about some of the invitations that we have for you all about areas that you might experiment with. And we have a few of them. And so again, we hope that you'll at least leave with one of them that you can put into practice right away.
Thank you for that. Oh gosh, I also like, I don't know whether anyone else has found that with the all-nighter. Doesn't work for me either. I'm right there with you, Kalia. Okay, our first invitation. And like Clea said, we've got a few here that we want to offer you. Some of them might feel good, some of them might feel like you'll come back to them maybe later down the line. Whatever works for you right now, that's what we want you to take away. The first invitation, and it sounds simple. I realize this sounds very simple, but actually it's key. And it's something that I think I, like Kalia and I, definitely needed to implement early on in our PhDs. And it's definitely something that my friends, my peers, my colleagues, other PhDs, other early career researchers, I think still actively put treat this as a practice. So this is a central part of the research journey, is noticing your energy and observing this. It's really easy to get kind of caught up in in the day to day, in the week to week, in the month to month of a PhD. Things start to move quite quickly. There's always stuff to attend to. There's always stuff to read. There's always emails to reply to. But I think by being observant, by being mindful of this all, I think this is the way that we actually get to forge, get to construct it, to create those workflows for ourselves that actually benefit us. For 1 week, we would love you to simply notice when you're feeling most alert and most creative, and also where your energy starts to dip. This can be really, keep this simple. So this can be like a little journaling exercise. Maybe there are like 2 columns. One, when did I feel focused and steady? What was happening around that time? And one, and just really mapping it out, just making those connections really clear. This isn't about fixing anything right now. This is just about paying attention and learning actually what systems work well for us. So that's our first invitation. Our second, Kalia is going to talk us through.
So our second invitation is to choose your anchors. And so when we talk about anchors, we are talking about these really intentional practices that help you feel grounded, right? So it's a thing that, if nothing else, if you have a busy week, if you have a hectic week, maybe if you're not feeling completely at your best, that this is at least the one checkpoint that you can kind of feel rooted in and come back to that can really anchor you into your week. So this can look like different things, right? So perhaps it can look like a weekly writing session. It might look like you hear, you maybe host a session every week that is really important to you. Or you should know that you're going to join Kate for 5 a.m. club, right? Like whatever it is, you know that that is going to be a touch point for me every single week. But it also might look like a Sunday rest ritual, right? It might look like a device-free evening. I'm really working on that, y'all. I'm really working on the analog. Um, it might also look like um date night with your partner, right? Imagine like you can like talk to your partner later and be like, I went to this session on first year PhD and I got homework is that I have to have weekly date night. Like that is absolutely necessary. Um like that is crucial to me get my PhD. Like imagine though, right? Like imagine. Um and we believe that it could be, right? Because we we believe that in order for you to complete this PhD, you get to do it in a way that's nourishing to you. A lot of people lose themselves along the way, and we really want to express that it doesn't have to be that way. Of course, there's other ways that might look like your check-in with your therapist. It might be your conversation with your advisor. It might be a prayer ritual or your Sunday mass or services or a journaling ritual. It could be lots of different things. And we love as we go along, if one resonates or if you something comes in mind. I think Kate already said she was thinking about her 5 a.m. club. Put it in the chat, right? Let's share it as accountability, but also to witness each other and how we're planning to anchor. And if you, we want you to at least choose one, right? Like, so it doesn't have to be a lot of things, but at least have one thing where you say, okay, for the rest of this year, this is going to be my touch point. This is going to be my anchor. And then, of course, put it on the calendar. Okay. All right, Polly, you want to take us to our next invitation?
I'd love to. Okay, our next one, next invitation for you is to set one boundary early on in this next week coming, in the next couple of days. So and this doesn't stop at just one. You might find once one's been set, actually it shows you where you want to go next and how you want to practice this like on a larger scale. But we'd love to invite you to just set one for now. Boundaries can protect your focus and your energy. It's really easy for the PhD to overwhelm every single bit of your life. It will go like if you it's a project that will take up all the time you give it. So it's really important to make sure those boundaries are set. Choose one area where you can give yourself just that little bit of breathing room. This could look like clearly I'm also like struggling with that analog intention. This could look like, okay, saying no email after 5 p.m. or turning off notifications when you're writing or reading. This could be like actively taking, like choosing, okay, no work on the weekends, only reading for fun on the weekends, only reading for joy, for pleasure. We don't have to feel guilty for taking weekends or time or evenings off. You get to decide what this looks like. And the PhD shouldn't over if the, yeah, the PhD shouldn't be a 24/7 thing. This is how like especially in like deadline modes, I think that's how I thought it had to be able to make progress, but actually that led me just to burnout and it made it harder to make that steady progress and move my thinking forward. So these boundaries, they're really important for a number of reasons. So your invitation is to write down that boundary, whatever it is, whether it's weekends, whether it's no emails after a certain point in the day, whatever it is, I'd like you to write that down and I'd like you to share it with someone who can help you keep it. Okay. Again, if it feels right, do feel free to share that in the chat as well. We're also happy, this little cohort, this little group of people here, we can also witness that boundary. If you want to share that, we'd love to hear. We also know that like sharing our knowledge and sharing our wisdom is such an important thing for the PhD. Sharing your boundary will it might spark someone else's thoughts in this room and go, actually, yeah, that's a really good boundary. I'm gonna borrow that one. I'm gonna employ that one as well. So do feel free to share them in the chat. Okay, next invitation over to you, Clea.
Yeah, and I just want to call out some of the things that people are writing in the chat. So Kate's boundary is minimum one full day away from my desk. I love that one. Um, I think that is one we all need. Ezra is saying my commute journey home from uni is for me time, reading or creative writing or listening to podcasts, so that at home I am ready and excited to spend time with my partner and friends and move from my PhD state to my home state of mind. That is so intentional, Ezra. I love that. And yeah, continue to connect in the chat. I'm loving what I'm seeing. Okay. So our next invitation is to schedule rest and recovery. Now, the first thing I want you to know about this is you define what that means. You define what rest and recovery is for you. An aspect of my scholarship is actually around rest, and I've facilitated many rest sessions and with students, with faculty, with administrators, with people in organizations. And the most common thing that comes up is that often we don't feel worthy of it. Part of that is because of historical, cultural, social dynamics that are at play, right? That have socialized us around productivity and the fact and the myth that we actually need to earn rest. Um, we are human beings, and so we literally are made to have time to rest and digest. And so it is really, really, really important. So we want you to not think about rest in this PhD journey as a reward, right? So if you don't remember anything after you leave today, I want you to remember that you centering your rest and recovery is not something that you have to earn. It is not a reward. It's absolutely essential to your being as a human, and it supports and um, ultimately it does support and advance your capacity for the intellectual work that you're going to do. That's not what we do it, but it is a bonus. We do it because we are human and we are worthy of it, but it is a bonus that it actually helps propel and deepen our capacity for the learning process. So for those of you who need that type of framing, who need you maybe a little legalistic kind of framing to support why you must rest, there it is. Okay. And we can talk about the nervous system and stuff like that on another day if y'all want to do that. But this is really, really crucially important. And the other thing I want you to know about I want you to think about this rest and recovery as integration. So, what does it mean to actually have time and space to integrate this learning, right? To actually allow these ideas to form within you, for you to theorize, right? Like, so these activities that might look like it might look like a nap, but it also might look like music, right? Like sitting with music. Like think about the last time you listened to an album in one sitting with attention. For some of y'all, that was Taylor Swift, so it wasn't that long ago. But others of you, maybe you haven't done it. And that's just for y'all Swifty, because it was I haven't listened to the album yet, but I know I got lots of Swifty friends, and so I honor that in you. But like if you think about that, like how did that nourish you, right? So you don't have to wait ever however many years that our girl decides to release an album, right? But you can give yourself that, right? So it might look like creative play, again, worship. And as you'll notice, like a lot of these, there's intersections, right, between all of these. But it's just a different way of framing them and you really seeing how holistic this PhD process is in terms of how we get to support ourselves to navigate it. All right, Polly's going to take us to our last invitation.
I love that, Clea. And also, when we get off this call, I need to send you all of my thoughts and feelings on the new Taylor Swift album. So look out for that. You've been warned. Okay, our final invitation. It's about reflection and it's about readjustment. So it kind of takes in all of the things that we've been talking through. And it invites you to really treat this time as an experiment. So every couple of weeks, we'd like you to ask what is working, what's not working, and what's giving you energy, and what's taking that energy away. PhDs, part of working out how to do one, like part of doing it is working out actually what it is, what it looks like in the day to day. We might have an idea of what we get out of it at the end, this incredible doctorate that you're working towards. We might have an idea of what books to read. We might have an idea of like where to go find articles. We know how to write. This is a practice we're excited to nurture, to foster. But actually doing a PhD, what that feels like when you get up in the morning and how you start your day, you get to make that, and you also get to change that. If something isn't working, you get to readjust. So this is an invitation to not get swept along with the kind of with everything that is exciting and that's taking you in a zillion different directions. It's to enjoy that process. We can enjoy that, but we can also just reflect. We can take a minute for ourselves. We can build this into a weekly practice and then we can adjust. So it's just about checking in with yourself and knowing that if things are starting to feel like it's actually you're not entering into a pattern that is feeling good, if you start to notice that you're feeling stressed more days than not, if you have a sense of anxiety creeping in, you get to change that. That's not a part of it. Doesn't have to be a part of the PhD. We can actually enjoy the research. We can enjoy this journey. And that's, I think, one of the crucial things that Clea and I really want to convey to you today is that you get to enjoy it. It doesn't have to be this kind of painful endeavor. You get to really reflect and you get to readjust and you get to create the systems that actually work for you. And these all look different for every single person in this room. So it's not about doing everything all at once. It's about just experimenting, playing, and not being too rigid, not being too hard on ourselves. We can let the rhythm reveal itself to us. And we also know that those rhythms might change, like what's working well in your first year. This might change. We might want to readjust things in our second, in our third year. You're allowed to change things if they're stressing us out. I think I really needed to hear that when I was starting off my PhD. So this is one of the one of the things I'm most excited to share today. All right. Those are our invitations for you. Kalia, we're going to now think through how to build those support systems.
Thank you, Polly. So it goes without saying that this PhD is something that you will not do alone. That might sound a little ironic because it can be a very isolated experience. You do have to, the end goal is for you to be able to have your research and do this independently, but those words are a little misleading. You're going to collaborate every step of the way. You all are already in accepted society, so that already speaks to your value that you know that community is absolutely integral to your academic journey. And so we want to invite you to continue to think about how to engage with your support system in a really intentional way. So, when it comes to supervision, working with your advisor, um, depending on your program, some folks may have even a harder time having access to their advisor early on. And so that might require you to be even more proactive. But we want to encourage you to, be proactive, ask for meetings, clarify expectations, share goals, right? If you have an advisor or supervisor who isn't as open to meeting regularly, you can still ask. And then if you aren't able to meet as often as you like, you can, send email updates, or use that time to reach out to other faculty or other folks that may be from other universities as well. That's often overlooked. We are, as PhDs, we join a global community of scholars. And so it's important for you also to be aware that there are folks outside of your actual university and program that likely can be of support to you and you can collaborate with. When it comes to peers, we want to invite you to see your peers as colleagues, to prioritize collegiality, to do your best to decenter comparison. I know that that's so difficult, but do your best. And of course, we know that we have amazing writing groups and sessions here at Accepted, but don't feel afraid to, also engage on campus events, right? On campus writing retreats, or even invite folks to join you in the library. Sometimes it can feel hard to put yourself out there, but those might end up being some of the people who, you defend with at the end, and who you walk the stage with. And so forming those relationships in the beginning is really, really valuable. We want to remind you to not to disconnect from life outside of academia. The PhD can feel all-encompassing, but it's really important for you to stay grounded to your community, your family. That could be your actual biological family or your chosen family, your faith communities. Really, if service in your community is really important for you, find a way, right? Find a way to be able to also continue to do that, or, you know, make intentional when if you plan to visit home, make an intentional outreach to maybe like meet up with some friends or family members. Um, I think that's not talked about enough, like how important it is to stay connected with your community beyond academia. One of my reflections I had was that I kind of regretted a little bit how much I spent so much of my gifts in academia and that I didn't always take those same gifts and take it back to my community. And so that was something that later on in my program, I really thought more about and became much more important. It was important to me that the folks on my campus weren't the only folks to get the best of my knowledge and leadership. My community was deserving of my service as well. So I want to really encourage you all around that. And then, of course, self-support. We've already talked about creative outlets, rest. I think those of us in Accept that we do a really good job about hobbies and such. And then those of us who aren't as good as good at that naturally, we have lots of inspiration here in the community. Um, and then, reframing that support is not dependency, is actually interdependent, right? So you seeking support is you being in relationship with others, right? We are made to be interdependent as humans. And so do not see seeking support as a weakness.
One of the ways that we like to phrase this for our workshops that we do in PhD and our community connection calls is if this was a recipe that we're talking about, if support was a recipe that you're following in a cookbook, what ingredients would you need right now? So I think this allows us to just look at it objectively. So maybe it's like, 100 grams of accountability, like 50 grams of quiet time, a handful of peer support, and a little sprinkle, a little splash of therapy in there. Maybe it's like Leo was saying, maybe it's one solid supervisor meeting. Maybe it's a writing partner, a writing buddy. Maybe it's sleep, like consistent rest. Every single recipe looks really different for each person, and that recipe can change. Like that recipe on Tuesday morning will look different than that recipe on Friday afternoon. What matters is that you're working out what nourishes you and actively asking for that, actively building that into your system so you can take control of the situation. You deserve to feel nourished, you deserve to feel supported. You don't have to do this PhD alone, as Kalia said. Okay, so I think Kalia has now a
Yeah.
little a little screenshot to show us, if that's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, I think you can go to the next slide now, Polly. Thank you. So I thought this was fun in reflecting on this session. I remembered that in my first semester, when I first started, this probably was like my first week. This is 8 years ago. I mean, it looks like yesterday though. Like I'm like, I can't believe this was me 8 years ago. I'm like, she's the same. Um, but um, I actually was so supported by a couple YouTubers when I was planning to start my PhD. And at the time, there weren't that many folks on the journey, and particularly there weren't many Black women, but there were two. Um, one of them, I want to name her Leah Barlow, um, and the other was Scholar Noir. And those two women, they actually, ironically, both did their PhDs at University of Pennsylvania. But they so inspired me, and I watched all their videos and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna become a YouTuber when I start my PhD program. So I did one vlog. You should know there's only one. Like pretty much no one has seen this. There's been like three views because I never promoted it. I didn't do anything. But I did document my journey in other ways. And so I do want to encourage you all to find ways to document your journey along the way. I love that I have this little 18-minute video where I just was yapping. But one of the things that I shared that I want to encourage you all about, one of the things that I shared, and I kind of foreshadowed it, was that I spent a lot of time talking about me adapting to like my assistantship, my teaching responsibilities, and my admin responsibilities. Y'all are gassing me up in the chat. I mean, the skincare, I got y'all. We'll do that. We'll do have to do accepted academy like skincare. We might have to do that. But SPF helps. I'll just tell y'all that SPF helps. But I was talking a lot about that, and I will tell you, you all, my PhD journey was 7 years long, which I did not anticipate. There was also a pandemic, but still, but a lot of what showed up for me as a challenge was me dealing with prioritizing, having a hard time prioritizing my teaching and admin responsibilities alongside my actual scholarship. So I just want you to just be conscious of that for those of you who have these multiple roles, which likely all of you to some extent do have multiple roles. And so being able to really try to prioritize and that boundary anchor is going to be really, really important to support you along the way. Polly, I know you have a little memory too that you want to share.
I do. I just want to say thank you for sharing that. I love that. I love thinking of like earlier back in the day starting this all, and I just what a lovely way to honor that person, that scholar starting out. This is such a good reminder. I also have a little photo, a little memory. Okay, so we saw Clea at the start of her PhD journey. This is me back in 2023, just after I passed my Viva, just after I defended. Um, there's so much we want to say in terms of sharing advice that we wish we'd have known starting out. And oh, a quick note to say, if you'd like more advice and reflections from Kalia and I, please do sign up to our free PhD newsletter on Substack. We can pop the link in the chat for anyone who might be interested in hearing more reflections and more invitations of how to practice this PhD. Okay, so 2023, I just passed my Viva. This is my happy face, if anyone is wondering. I was over the moon. And it was, I think, that moment where I was cheersing with a group of friends. That was one of the first times in the 4 years that I was doing my PhD that I'd actually paused to celebrate. Like I actually, like it was quite a shock to the system. I was like, what is this feeling? I'm not sure I understand what's going on. I was celebrating. I was happy. I was taking that breath. I was reflecting on the journey, on like everything that had happened, and I was letting it all sink in. So that's what this photo means. For most of my PhD, I've been so focused on the next deadline, that next chapter draft, that next goal, that next conference paper. My goodness, I'd never stopped to actually acknowledge like all of this along the way, and the kind of all the things that that journey had brought up. Now in 2025, working with Kalia, working with Kate, working with Kaylin, um, my approach to academia and the advice that I'd give to anyone now is the complete and polar opposite. Now, my practice, like my like personal practice and like the advice that I share is celebrate every single step along the way, no matter how big or small. And that is like the last piece of advice that I'd like to share as part of this session before we move to think through some of our brilliant PhD members and their words of wisdom that we'd love to give to you as well. So celebrating everything means seriously celebrating everything. It means celebrating every paragraph written, every challenge that you work through, every milestone, every small moment of clarity. These moments all matter. They're the things that make up that progress that then lead us to where we want to be. They build that momentum, the meaning, and really the joy that sustains us through this long haul of research. So, as I said, that's some advice from us. We'd now love to close with some wisdom, some knowledge from some other PhD students who are a little bit further along down the line. So some of these are second year PhD students, some of these are final year PhD students. We asked our PhD community what advice they'd like to give themselves if they were to start again. These are on the screen for us here. I would love to read them out if that's okay. I think they're all really beautiful. They were like some of them were a little bit humorous, so I hope you can see the humor in some of them. But I think for the most part, they're just, I hope you can see that honesty, that transparency, and that vulnerability and that heart here as well. So, what they tell their first year selves: it's okay to put yourself first. Consistency is infinitely more valuable than perfection. We had a little bit of advice about the literature review. So don't rush it. Don't rush the lit review. Depth really matters. Some advice is write from day one, even if it's messy. My goodness, I wish I'd have done this. Writing becomes scary when we leave it too long. What we want is to feel really connected to our thoughts and connected to that page. So the messier, the better. What matters is that we're creating a practice for ourselves. So writing from day one. Slow and steady. Build in breaks. This is a really good one. Someone shared that people may not understand what you're doing, and that's okay. So not everyone understands what it is to be doing a PhD. Not many people do PhDs, and that can feel isolating in and of itself. But there are people that are going to get it. They might be in your department. They might be within accepted. They might be close friends who we share everything with, but people aren't going to get it. And that's absolutely fine. That doesn't devalue the work that you're doing. The work that you're doing is incredible. Folks, if one of those pieces of advice has spoken to you, I'd really love to hear about which one it is. Please do feel to drop it in the chat. But it's always just so beautiful to see like what happens when we engage in that community, what like knowledge, what wisdom is shared. So turning to the chat. Ah, Kalia, thank you for all the links. This is magic.
Yeah, so our PhD community was so happy to when we told them we were doing this session. They were like, "Oh," so they just really enjoyed sharing these tips. And yeah, we hope that this has been super helpful. Um, we will close now with just one last invitation. We would love to just hear what was one reminder or shift or intention that you want to carry into the rest of this year as you leave this session. What are you taking away? And if someone wants to come off mic, if you've warmed up, we'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, we're happy to also read from the chat. Someone says, consistency will be the number one thing I will have to work on. Yes, compassionately. I like to remind folks that it's a practice, right? So if you approach it as a practice, um, certainly you'll make progress. And then Ezra was saying, I really needed to hear all of these, especially the one on the lit review. Deadline is approaching faster than I thought. You got this, Ezra. And the one about not everyone understanding the pain and joy of being a first gen student where my family is infinitely proud, but has no idea what I'm doing. Yes, I relate to that deeply. I relate to that deeply. Um, any other reflections or one thing that someone wants to share that they are going to take from the session and put into practice right away? Kate, I'm going to invite you to share. Kate inspired this session, so I feel comfortable putting her in blast.
Kate requested this session out of pure and utter desperation. Uh, um, I was just writing down these pieces of advice because one thing for the PhD for me is that it is a entirely like massively big break from my life as I know it, essentially. So it is coming with a whole lot of transitionary identity shifts and things like that. And I think the things that like really stand out for me here is I suppose encompassed in this idea of it's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to put those structures and those boundaries in place for yourself in this process because it is a long-term project and you can't write a PhD in a day. So this is exactly what I needed it to be. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate that so much.
Oh, we're thankful. No pressure at all for us at all. Knowing you personally requested this session. But we're thankful that it felt supportive. Thank you for that reflection. We love that you all were just so generous with your shares here in the chat. I love the connection that's going, the shared resonance. This is what Accepted is about. You all already know that. You've already invested so much into this community, and we're so thankful for that. If you feel like PH Done might be a additional support system that you might like for your journey, whether it's now, whether it's later, we're here for you. Feel free to connect with us in Circle. Um, we are we also have a fun thing that we're going to announce that will give you all the little first announcement here is that we will begin doing a monthly writing session for PhD students that mirrors what we do in our PhD community, but we will offer it on a monthly basis to the Accepted Society community. So we hope that that excites you if you liked feeling, Polly and I, we will do those together. We have the best time. The vibes are the best. So, if nothing else, we hope to see you there. We'll be sharing our November date really, really soon. But we have both personally been shaped by this community and so supported. So it's our honor to be here as a resource and learn from you all as well. So thank you. Thank you, thank you. Um, Deeply thankful. If there are questions, we'll say thank you to everyone. But if anyone wants to stay on and ask any questions or anything like that, we're happy to stick around for a few minutes. Thank y'all. Thank you, Ruby.